We're going.
Okay, I'm Liz Raymond,
I'm Joey.
and we did our fundamental movement project on gymnastics. So first of all, the definition of fundamental movements, study of motor patterns and basic skills that we see during early childhood, and we see them gaining control over fine and gross motor skills. So there's 3 stages within this. Initial is in the first 2 to 3 years of their childhood. They first attempt to try a certain skill, and it usually turns out to be uncoordinated and very exaggerated. The elementary stage, which occurs between 4 and 5 years of age, we see improvement with the coordination and greater control over the motor skills, but there's still lacking elements, which are in the mature phase. And the mature phase occurs between years 5 and 7. They are mechanically correct, coordinated, and have efficient movements, which is an example of core strength that is needed to stand up after they perform a forward roll. So in day 1, we started off by just asking if anyone knew how to do a forward roll without explaining what it was or any verbal skills. Layla knew pretty well, but she's pretty tall, so it's hard to get her to go over. With some instruction, Zoe, she needed us to tell her verbally about how to do a forward roll, such as chin to your chest and flip over, and she kind of struggles a little bit with trying to get over. And then we also had some kids who didn't know what a forward roll was at all and didn't know how to make their body do that. So in the last one, Lucas had us actually flip him over for him. And also cartwheels, a little more difficult. So Ruth has already had gymnastics experience. We asked her about it. So she knew how to do it. She doesn't perform it accurately, but she knew what it was. Micah was getting there. We kind of explained it to him. We did more of just performing the action for him. And he kind of flips himself over his body, so he's getting there, but not very accurately. And then Annabelle, we had to flip her over manually. And as you can see, she doesn't really move her arms or lock them. She kind of just holds them up, so we're basically doing the entire motion for her. And then, so the observations that we saw during this, we did, for the forward roll, we did verbal and visual explanations, because a lot of them are, it's pretty easy to describe how to do a forward roll. And so we told them to squat down, chin to their chest, push off. So with age 3, they're in the initial stage still, so it was a very exaggerated push off. And wobbling from side to side, so they can't really go straight over onto the forward roll, they kind of tip off to the side. And the difference is we see elementary stage people with the age of 4, they have better momentum with their push-off, so they're not really wobbling or not making it all the way over. They're fully making it all the way over, usually pretty straight, some side-to-side movement, but it kind of depends on if you had experience as a child doing this. And then with cartwheels, we did more visual because it's kind of hard to explain on how to perform a cartwheel to a younger child. So we kind of saw them trying to do an attempting cartwheel on their own versus us, like with Annabelle, having to physically lift them up and throw them over.
Alright. Day 2. So day 2, we challenged their memory on how to do their forward rolls, and we saw some improvements here and there. So we can see Annabelle here. She makes it over okay. She really liked to just kind of lay on her back. We see Micah was attempting with some instruction, and he got it down pretty well. And then we have Linnea, who needed a lot of help. And as you can see, she just was trying to roll around on the mat and had a lot of that. For cartwheels, it's still a very difficult skill for them. A lot of them don't really understand the concept of locking their arms, but we did employ a new tactic. We got some Lego blocks for them to kind of kick their legs over like that. So Ruth kind of knows what she was doing because she has some gymnastics experience. Lucas, he had a good attempt, but he ended up just doing a forward roll. But you can see he kind of positioned his arms and got his kind of kick over with his leg almost right. And then Zoe was practicing with the blocks, and that was a good tactic to kind of get them to use their arms and kind of get over something. So our day 2 observations, we were reminding the kids how to do the forward rolls and cartwheels and observing if they could perform the task with less instruction. The elementary stage, the kids, they did not need to remember to perform the task. They had high confidence levels and they could do it. The initial stage, some of the kids remembered and some didn't. They knew their limitations, but they were always eager to try for you. And then we used the blocks as a new mechanism for them to perform the cartwheels, and that helped a lot.
Okay, so day 3, we also did another kind of just asking them about the memory of doing forward rolls. And Lucas actually ended up being one of the best ones at this. We didn't have to touch him at all to move him. We kind of just like watched and hovered over him, and he performed it pretty well. Christian knew how to do rolls. This was a pretty good example. A lot of the times he would wobble from side to side, but he was one of our ones who was very confident in himself, and he always wanted to keep trying. He wanted to keep us to keep watching him. And then on the right, this was a really good example of a sibling trying to attempt what the other sibling is doing. So Leela, she does the forward roll, and her brother actually is like trying to, but in the real video he screams because he can't do it. So he just turned 3, so he was at the very initial stage during this point. And then with the cartwheels, we couldn't get a lot of them to participate in the last week. Annabelle tries to do it again, but kind of just fell, and that happened with a lot of the kids who attempted to do that. And so the observations for this, it was kind of hard to get them to participate in the last week. They wanted a bribe, and we didn't actually have one. So it was a lot difficult. And so for the kids in the initial stage, they were transitioning a lot of them into the elementary stage for forward rolls. They had a lot of confidence in their abilities to perform, and even if they weren't transitioning into the elementary stage, they wanted to keep performing and try to keep getting there. And within the elementary stage, they had a lot of confidence, especially in the forward rolls, and they spent less time at the station once they knew that they could get the forward rolls down.
All right, so some differences in age. So we did some observations of the developmental differences between the groups with outside examples, past experience, siblings, and history of gymnastics. The 3-year-olds at the initial stage, their push-off was kind of weak. They had trouble kind of getting themselves over. For the most part, they couldn't flip over straight because they would end up kind of balancing on their head and kind of tilting over. And at the end of the forward roll, they were not able to stand up immediately afterwards. The 40-year-olds at the elementary stage, they were able to push off strong and go straight for the most part. But their ability to stand up is still, they were kind of working on that. I think this is the best and closest example to getting someone to stand up. We were telling them to kind of tuck into their knees instead of letting their legs hit the mat first so they could stand up. But she got very close. The differences in gender, we didn't see much difference in the ability to perform things, but the girls were definitely much more willing to listen to instructions and get distracted less. With the boys, they were very easily distracted and could run off or just start jumping on the mat and doing my thing.
Okay, so within the development of the self, the kids that were in the elementary stage got bored easily and moved around because they were pretty confident in their abilities to perform. And then the kids within the initial stage, they were easily distracted, so they had a shorter attention span. They forgot what we were doing and wanted to jump on the mats or throw bark on it or just interact with each other rather than performing the motions. A lot of them had very good self-esteem. Otherwise, they knew their limitations, but they kept trying to perform anyways. So some other observations that we had, we saw what worked, which was positive reinforcement, like high fives and good jobs when it was deserved. A lot of visual instructions because verbal wasn't always quite so helpful, so performing a lot of the cartwheels and the forward rolls for them was very helpful. And then asking if they had previous experience in gymnastics, because the ones that said yes, we could tell a little bit that they have done this before. What didn't really work was not having a bribe, so for Lucas on the 3rd day, we actually had to steal someone else's bribe in order to get him over there because he was not having it. And so it was also really hard getting all the same kids for each motion every day. And then For the future, we definitely want to use a bribe and have better follow-up with the same kids to learn some better verbal instructions, like doing the cartwheels is a little hard to explain, so if we have more time to think about how to perform and speak about those motions. And then in the future, we'd also use different skills, such as trying to do a backwards roll or a handstand, and also teaching them how to lock their arms in the forward rolls and the cartwheels. Yeah.
Questions, comments? No questions or comments?
I have a good one. Joe,
Yes?
when I talked about you didn't have to dress up,